I think it's time that we all come to accept that digital only is the future of gaming, and it's honestly going to be the better future. I mean, think about it. What more could you want than come back home from a long day of work and sit down on the couch and just enjoy playing a video game and not have to get up and change the disc or anything like that? Just sit down and enjoy a video game, right? Digital or not. It's right there, quick switching. I can switch between games and just reliably be able to sit down and play my video games. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's right. This just happened the other day. What better timing, right? PlayStation just had a massive outage. And this isn't just like an outage with uh, not being able to play online multiplayer games. People were actually not able to play some of their digital games. Go figure. You can't ask for better timing for a story like this. The original story: Sony's PlayStation Network services have been offline for hours today, leaving fans unable to play some digital games. Unsurprisingly, impacted users have been left pointing to the benefits of physical copies, just weeks after Sony's bombshell announcement that it will kill PS5 discs. PlayStation services began to disappear for some users around 8:30 a.m. Eastern this morning, around the same time as an alert from Amazon Web Services that multiple Amazon web servers in the US region were facing connectivity issues. Well, that's good to know that PlayStation just relies on Amazon Web Services. I feel like more than half the internet is just Amazon Web Services. It's good to know that PlayStation is right up there with them. Despite the problem being marked as resolved and around an hour later, players reporting continue experiencing continued issues in the hours since, and countries outside of the US too. The issue has hit PlayStation services just as the open beta for Sony's published and console exclusives Marvel Token Fighters was getting underway. So, and this really got me thinking, this whole story, that it's not even just like digital versus physical, and like some people are saying it's a licensing issue of who holds the license, but when I buy physical games, to me, I'm investing into retirement, right? And like in 40 years from now, when I'm like 70 years old, I want to be able to just enjoy my life, right? I want to be like disconnected. I hope I'm not still making YouTube videos by then. Spoilers. I might not be making videos at 70 years old. I just always have this like vision of like waking up, going on like an early morning walk, coming home, maybe exercising, gotta keep the fitness up and being healthy. Uh, Maybe reading a book, watching TV, movies, and playing some games. And like that's just how I want it to be. And I just want it to be a peaceful life, to be honest. I just want to have like a peaceful retirement. And there's nothing worse, and I can compare it to like streaming services. We're gonna use Crunchyroll for an example. This is a whole video for another time. I remember watching Dr. Stone on Crunchyroll. I had seasons 1 and 2 on Blu-ray. We watched it, we really loved it. And then we went and wanted to watch season 3. And I used my PS5 and I used Crunchyroll, and Sony owns Crunchyroll. You think this should really work? I used a free trial. Me and my wife, we were like, we're gonna like just binge it all in a week. And I sit there and like after work, I just sit down. I just want to watch the next episode of Doctor Stone, and just the servers were not working. And like this happened like all week, and it was so frustrating. You'd watch like 5 minutes and it would freeze, and you try to kill the app, power off the console, and it just would not work. It would just freeze, and just had a horrible experience just crawling through an otherwise really good season of a TV show. And it all comes down to just the infrastructure. And so besides just digital games being licenses, in the all digital future, when we're relying completely on Sony and their services, we're also relying on their infrastructure. So not just their like policy on licenses and being able to revoke and take your games away from you, but we're also thinking about their infrastructure and how well like are they going to be able to provide these services. And the internet is still relatively young in the grand scheme of things. And I kind of feel like that there's really like a couple of different futures. I think the internet in general has a utopian and dystopian future. I kind of think of it like the electrical grid. Internet is almost like a utility anyway. The electrical grid is just like, getting worse and worse, like bridges around like the country. Like that infrastructure it was good at one point, and then it gets old, and no one wants to maintain it, right? Who wants to spend the money to like revamp like the electric grid or, some bridges or anything like that. And I kind of think the internet could be the same way. I mean, I know I just got fiber internet a year or two ago, and it's great. It resolved all my issues with like cable internet, but like cable internet used to be great, but then like just everything around the internet, like file sizes of games and like streaming and websites and everything just got bigger. And it no longer works in that infrastructure. And so like now there's this whole effort to get everybody on fiber for just like the future of the internet. And it's like, how well is that infrastructure going to be in terms of just like that kind of infrastructure with the internet? Are things still going to go crazy with like the file size and everything? Like Call of Duty takes like up 200 or 300 gigabytes on like a console. That was unheard of. It used to all be restrictions with like the size of the disc and everything. Now we're just like people are able to do whatever they want because we're in the digital age, and I think that could backfire with stuff just like that kind of infrastructure, but like also just Sony's infrastructure to provide services, and with all this digital check-in and authorization, just be able to play your digital games. If Sony goes down, then what's going to happen. Like maybe this was a short outage, but the timing of it was perfect. But Sony has had lots of outages. I feel like out of all like the big players, Sony's had the most outages out of anybody, and like they just don't have a good track record. Also, like passwords, like they've had so many like hacks and account hacking, like the Sony hacks. I think that's like an underrated talking point that's not talked enough for the next 10 and 20 years with like big advancements. Everyone's thinking about AI and all the big AI advancements. Like we can kind of like, envision what AI is and like the advancements of how it's gonna get exponentially better. We have seen since it's come out in like 2022 how much better it's gotten since then. It's stuff like image and video generation. I think quantum computing though is super underrated because I know with like password cracking like algorithms, I think one that could like hack like any password that would take like 1,000 years to run on like a traditional computer, a quantum computer can run that in a matter of minutes. And so I think like in terms of like the entire internet infrastructure, like our emails and passwords and like our Sony accounts and passwords, I think it all can all become crackable really fast with a quantum computer in 10 or 20 years. And so just like that kind of internet infrastructure, like is that all going to just like go to hell someday? And then everyone has to get new accounts and the whole new infrastructure for the quantum era and all of that. And you just have to rebuy your games because now there's a new storefront and they don't support any of that. And I don't know. I just don't trust Sony with like the infrastructure side of things. And this outage is just a stark reminder that, the licenses is obviously a very big deal, and all the consumer friendliness of physical is such a big deal. But I don't know. Relying on Sony to do these services, I can't see it happen. Like because the utopian future is that Sony resolves these problems, or they're using Amazon Web Services, so you have to rely on Amazon too. Sony can't be bothered to make their own web services, right? They got to use Amazon Web Service for all that hosting and all that. But the utopian future would be that Sony does get this under control, and they just everything gets faster and better and more reliable. The problem with that is that costs money, and Sony has shown that they want to make money and not spend money. The only thing they want to spend money on is anything that can 100x their investments, like live service games, where all the microtransactions could be sold on their store, and they get more than a 30% cut because it's not a third-party live service game. And so I just don't have faith that Sony's going to really do anything to improve their stuff for the end user. I mean, if it works good enough, and like they showed with this like killing off the disc thing, that like they were ready for the backlash. They know what they're doing. They knew people were gonna like make noise, but they've just been waiting. They still haven't commented on it. They think it's just gonna blow over and all that. And I think they think the same way about these outages. Like, why would they invest like probably billions of dollars to get a good infrastructure, right? Because that like is going to cost more and more money to get like those, like if it works 90% and it's just that 10% or like these outages every once in a while, it's going to cost so much to close that gap of the last 10%. Why would they bother with that? And as time goes on, stuff like their servers and just everything else is going to degrade. And I just can't see them making the investment for that utopian all digital future. I absolutely believe it is going to be a more digital utopian future. And I don't know, for those people who think that digital is way better, I think that's short-sighted. And that's just like thinking about today and tomorrow and maybe next year, but you're not thinking 10 or 20 years from now. The thing is, I can still whip out my N64 and my GameCube and my PS2, and I can plug those in and play those games just fine. And I can't say the same thing about digital games. So like when it comes to retirement, I know I'm gonna have my N64 and GameCube and PS2. Those can degrade, sure. But I don't know. I feel like if it degrades, it's like my fault and my ownership. It's not something that's out of my control, like PlayStation servers and like the availability of the digital game. And I don't know, man. I think it's just a good stark reminder of just like modern gaming and the digital era and like where things are going and just the importance of physical media. And I don't hate digital games. I've been a hybrid physical and digital gamer for many, many years, and I feel like most people are hybrid physical and digital. I think digital is a great option. And when it comes to an outage like this, you have an outage and you can't play your digital game, then it's like, okay, I'll play a physical game. And in an all digital future like the PlayStation 6 and beyond, you're not going to have that option to just go and play a physical game. And I know like people call game key cards glorified digital games, and there's a lot of the same arguments like, oh, well, what if the servers go down and you can't download your game? It's like, well, most downloads only take like an hour or two, and once you get it downloaded, the game acts as a physical game on the game key card, so you don't have to have that server side authentication to prove that you own the game once it's downloaded. So yeah, absolutely, the whole with like the having to connect and with your internet goes out is for the initial download. But to be honest, if I'm gonna go try to play a game keycard game and the server's down and I can't download it, that means I haven't started playing the game yet, right? And then maybe I just play like a different game I have installed or whatever. But after a long day of work and like you have 1 hour to game and you sit down and you're in the middle of a game that you own, and that's all you want to do is play the game, and then the servers are down. That's super frustrating, and I think that we're more likely than not heading to that dystopian future where we're gonna have more and more server outages as time goes on. Because I don't have faith that Sony's gonna put the time and effort and money to give them to create just really strong servers. I feel like they've been the weakest out of like at least the big three. And I don't know, you don't see these kind of outages with like Nintendo and with maybe a little bit with Xbox, but not nearly. I feel like it's just maybe that's just like what I've noticed, or like I haven't seen every news story or anything like that. But I feel like it's just most with PlayStations. Let me know down in the comments if I'm crazy or if actually PlayStation is just the best. And we should be rooting for the all digital future. Buy Wolverine, buy GTA 6. The future is now. The future is bright. I don't think the future is bright. I really don't. I think I don't know. It's just as these weeks go on and Sony's silent, it's just like it's just a worse and worse look for them. And it's not too late, guys. It's not too late to cancel your pre-orders. It's not too late to just boycott Sony. We got to keep that message alive. And if it just gets one more person to join, that's good. But Sony's got to be sweating right now. Like when you have stuff like this happen, especially at this timing, when you have developers like even Sony first party developers advertising that their games gonna be released on physical. I don't know. I know they still haven't said anything yet, but they gotta be sweating. And so yeah, definitely keep making noise, you guys. A lot of people have been resonating with some of those videos, and it's awesome. I have a couple more that I want to make, so make sure to like and subscribe if you've been enjoying the content, or if this is your first time here. Really welcome to have you. You've got like 350 new people in like the past week, so yeah, very excited to have you guys here, and glad that some of those messages with boycotting Sony and all this is resonating with you guys. But keep up the pressure. This is gonna be a long fight, and it's gonna be a long battle. But I mean, this kind of news, it could not have come at a more perfect time. So, all right, you guys, I'll see you in the next video. Later.